Good morning and welcome on this Friday morning, a little after 9 o'clock here in the UK. And my name is Helen Jennings. I'm a Stampin' Up demonstrator based here in the UK. And I'm delighted, as always, to welcome you all to join me as we do a little bit of crafting in the lily pad craft room this morning. Been very busy creating cards and things this week, so I have little bits and pieces everywhere. So one of my first jobs when I come off air this morning is to do a bit of tidying up and putting things away, because I've got odd dies and stamps and things waiting to go away. So but hopefully that will not detract from us creating this morning. So if you are joining me live, do pop on and say hello. It's always lovely to see who's here with us. Let us know how things are with you today. Always ask any questions. If I don't happen to see them as the comments come through, I do try and keep an eye on them. Morning, Glenda. But if I do happen to see questions come up, I will always try and answer them if I can, or even put techniques or those sorts of things forward to another live. In actual fact, one of the techniques that we're going to be featuring today is one that came up that we were discussing in a recent class, and I said, I must do one of those as part of a live quite soon. So today is the day. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so I am going to flip my camera down. And this, as always, is me. You can find me on my website at www.love-a-duckie.co.uk. Apologies to anybody that was trying to access it yesterday. There was a little bit of a glitch with the security certificate being put up because it was annual subscription time, and it hadn't quite gone up in time before the old one expired, which meant nobody could get onto my website yesterday morning, including me. I couldn't even get on the back end without lots of messages coming up telling me that it wasn't secure. So it just goes to show that the system works, that when it is secure, and when it isn't, your computer will scream at you. But we are now all back up and running. It doesn't mean that the security dropped. It just meant that the certificate that I've got to show that I've got the security in the back end there was waiting for its new one to be listed, and it hadn't been listed. So it is now all good. You can go and find me at www.love-a-duckie.co.uk. Go and check out blog posts, go and check out classes, go and check out inspiration. And from my website, you can subscribe to my newsletter, so make sure you do that. And you can also subscribe to my blog so that you get notification every time there's been a new blog post in the previous 24 hours. You don't necessarily get one every time there's a blog post, but there's a message goes out every 24 hours if there is new blog posts appearing on there. So if you don't want to miss any of the posts that I'm putting up on my website, do make sure that you subscribe to my blog, and it will be lovely to have you there. And as with all things, you can find me everywhere: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all under that title of Love-a-Duckie. So do go and look out for that. Right, so this morning I thought we'd have a little look at one of the celebrations. Obviously, the mini catalogue and the celebration catalogue have both launched this week, which means we're able to flick through the pages and explore what's inside. And I thought this morning that we would have a look at one of the celebration items, and it is actually one of the celebration items from the back, one of the £90 celebration items, and it is this delicate Dahlia's stamp set in the back here. And you can claim this as a free gift if you place an order, a £90 order here in the UK, or the equivalent wherever you are in the world. But if you've got a Stampin' Up brochure, or indeed you are a demonstrator yourself, you will know what those figures are, but it will be the equivalent. It will be the equivalent of whatever that is in your market. For us in the UK, this is free with a £90 purchase. So let's have a little look at some of the samples in this little brochure, just really pretty. And it is a distinctive stamp, so you do get really gorgeous detail, and you have these outlines, and then you have this sort of solid infill stamp, and it just is just lovely. And that's what we're going to be playing with today. So let's bring the stamp in. Now you get two little packs, two sort of stamps in here, two of the acetate stamps, and each and sort of one will line up on one side with the images at the back, and the other will line up on the other side with the images at the back. And so this side you've got the outline images, you've got the outline of that flower, that little leaf, a smaller flower, a bigger leaf, and a couple of greetings, which are obviously backwards there, but will be the right way round when you stamp them. And this, look at that detail on that flower. Just looks like a photograph, doesn't it? So that's the sort of infill, or the solid dahlia with the solid leaves and little flowers, and a couple more greetings down there. So they're quite good big size stamps. And actually I'm going to grab my ruler. I will want to know in a minute how big that image is, so let's just measure it. So it is actually about 7.5, yeah, about 7.5 centimeters square. Just going to write that at the top of my mat just there, so that I remember that in a minute, because that will be an important piece of information in a little while. So let's get started. I've got a piece of shimmery white cardstock here. I do just want to grab a piece of basic white, because I want to have a look at that solid stamp before we really start on that, because I thought we would do some watercolouring this morning. First of all, let's have a look at this solid stamp and the image that you get with it just on its own. So you can use these stamps together, so use one as the outline and the other one lines up then as an infill stamp. So you can use this stamp to colour in this stamp if you want to, or you can use them on their own. What shall we have? Let's have a bit of red, real red, because dahlias are beautiful sort of autumny flowers. Now I've just inked that up, if you can see, just even inking it up, how it brings that stamp to life. And you've got sort of all the different shadings and things on it that you get with a distinctive stamp. Let's press that down on there, and look at that. It is just a stunning image, just beautiful. Let's have a look at this little solid image. Stamp some leaves as well, a bit of garden green. Just the detail in them are just beautiful. So really, you know, that stamp is just a stamp and go, really. It just is. Put a stamp on a piece of card. You could start masking it. Look at those. So they're just stunning. So those stamps, sort of leaving the outlines to one side completely, are just beautiful. I've got into my scripts. Let's clean these up. And just grab that one. Put those away. Really nice greetings as well. You inspire me. Oh, so happy for you. That would be quite nice for sort of a congratulations on a, I don't know, new job, wedding, baby announcement, all sorts of reasons why you might want an oh so happy for you. And then we've got thank you kindly and sending heartfelt sympathy. Obviously these sorts of images are really good for sort of sympathy cards. You might want to make that slightly more muted tones. Could even do it black and white and give it a sepia look. Just stunning. Okay, so that's just the image on its own, but I thought we would have a play with some watercolouring with the outline image. I've got a bit of shimmery white here. I'm just cutting down, so I'm making it 9.5 by 13.9. I'm going to take this large Dahlia. You could, of course, stamp it onto a post-it note, cut yourself out a mask. It might be a little bit fiddly, but hang on to your mask. Once you've cut it out, you can reuse it various times. I'm going to bring in some stays on. Now I have just re-inked this stays on this morning. This down here. Having some leaves. Coming out there. A bit of overlap in there, but we'll hopefully be able to disguise that a little bit with our watercolour. Let's bring in this sending heartfelt sympathy greeting. We may have to go in with a little label over the top of that. That didn't quite come out as well as we would like. So I'm going to send a sympathy card What colours shall we go with? So we want to keep them fairly muted. So Blackberry Bliss. Bit of Bumblebee perhaps will come in with some evening evergreen on the leaves. And we'll perhaps have some Misty Moonlight as well. Right, so I'll open up my Bumblebee. Let's give that a good squeeze. And come in with the narrowest brush. I'll just come in centre here to start with, some Bumblebee. And I'm also going to come in on the sort of end of the petals, and the outer petals. There's lots of petals in this flower. So I'm just laying down a bit of colour down on this edge for now. Okay, let's bring in our Blackberry Bliss. Let's fill in these flowers. Bring that Blackberry Bliss over those edges just so that it tones in, it just alters the colour on those outer edges a little bit. So I've stuck with the smaller brush. Could perhaps have risked getting away with this medium-sized one, but it there's still quite a little bit of pointy detail on these outer petals. These cases are nowhere near as easy to squeeze as the old ones were. It's better, you do need to turn them upside down. Better with a little bottle of ink refill really, but I need to top up on some of my ink refills. You could have just added a spot of ink refill to the lid of there. Still used it as a palette. These little leaves on the bottom here, little petals even. These are such beautiful flowers, and also quite nice, of course, because if you've got them in your garden, you can go and cut them and bring them indoors. They make quite a good cut flower. I haven't currently got any in my garden, but perhaps that's something to add. My garden is a bit of a work in progress at the moment, so things are being added all the time. And some dahlias might be a nice addition, some autumny late summer colour. There we go. So that bumblebee on the end has turned almost a rusty brown sort of colour. There's a bit of yellow peeping out just there, I think. Okay, so let's bring in our evening evergreen. Ooh, got a nice blob from that one. Might come back in with some of this bumblebee just in the centre of these leaves, and just to give a bit of variegation to the colour. Let's pick up some of this. And work around these leaves. Obviously, the more ink you add, the stronger the colour. And as you continue to work your way around, you obviously, with your water brush, you're adding water to your little palette all the time, so you will find it getting paler. around here. Last little leaf just here. Just going to come back in with this purple because there is a petal that I've missed just there. Right, I've got some misty moonlight here. Let's just pick up this. I do want this to be quite watery, so we'll add in quite a bit of water just there. And come on round the edge. So obviously you could do these dahlias really bright colours where you went with a sympathy greeting. So if we wanted to keep them a little bit more toned down. You could of course use a wink of Sale-a-Brush instead of a water brush if you wanted lots of extra sparkle. Let's just come round this edge a little bit. Now I'm going to grab a piece of Blackberry Bliss card, I think. I actually think I might go with a Blackberry Bliss card base. These are the sort of cards we don't want to have to make, but that we do. And actually are an important way of sending our love and thoughts to people at what is always a very difficult time. Let's put a black mat behind that. We'll make this 14.4 by 10. We'll obviously need a white mat inside. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of black. I'm going to re-stamp that greeting because it's didn't quite stamp out properly. The nice thing about when we stamp greetings is if at first they don't succeed, we can often sneak in a little mat to over the top. Bring that in a little bit. It's a really nice sort of almost not quite typeface, but a very sort of clear font on that. Let's have a look and find ourselves a little label. What have we got in the Tasteful? Tasteful Touches. It's quite a nice shape. Just run that through the machine. Do with something underneath that. Let's cut ourselves this shape. Let's see how that works. And a little bit of black. That works quite well. Oh. Looking at the ribbon. It's nice textured. And the evergreen ribbon just here. Actually snip a couple of little bits of that off. Or scissors. Let's come and I'll cut that at a bit of an angle. I think I didn't quite do that long enough. Let's cut ourselves another little bit longer. And make it 2 little bits a bit longer. There we go. Right, okay, let's do some sticking. I'll start off by sticking the black mat to the card base. That's Blackberry Bliss base just there. Let's take a watercoloured mat. And obviously, because we've watercoloured this shimmery card, it does bend up sometimes. I'll take my big block and just give that a good press down. It is getting warmer and warmer in here, although I think we do look as if we might be in for a showery day. The one thing we don't want is any sort of thunderous rainstorms while we're live, because it does hammer on this conservatory roof and you wouldn't be able to hear a word I said. Can't hear yourself think when it comes down, when it hammers down. And that's that way. I'm going to need another little bit, a second bit of ribbon. Obviously this is all happening underneath our sentiment label, so nobody's going to see these these sticky bits going on under here. Let's put some tear and tape on the back of this label here as well. And we'll just lift the back up on there. Pointy end on your take a pick tool is so useful for that. Add that in there. So our top piece has got stitching on, and the piece underneath has got it's just sort of an embossed line on that piece underneath there. Bringing some dimensionals. Oh, thought they were large ones. They're not, they're small ones, but that's okay. I'll just perhaps pop another one in the middle. As I say, we'll of course need a mat for inside, so let's make that 9.5 by 13.9. I'm just going to take the large flower, and I'm not colouring this in, I'm just going to add sort of in the corner in black, a bit of that flower. And then add that on the inside. So there we are, that's a sympathy, watercoloured sympathy card. So that's just the outlines watercoloured. We had a look at stamping that as it is, and so you could do that in black and white or grey. That would be quite nice for a sympathy card as well. But there we are, some lovely watercolouring, and you could do that, as I say, if you were using it for different occasions. You could really make that flower bright and bold. Right, let's just regroup slightly. these inks away. And a quick slurp of water. These watercolour pens away. Now I'm going to want a Stays-On. Another thing we're going to need is a Versamark, and I am also going to re-ink this Versamark. So I've just got my Versamark re-inker here. I need, I think, to treat myself to a new Versamark pad at some point when I get it very loved. Just going to squeeze that over the surface. And here I've got an old store card that is no longer use them. I'm just going to rub that ink into the surface of that pad. Use the back of a spoon. Some of the runnier inks you don't need to worry with quite so much, but with the Versamark ink it is quite gloopy and would just sit there on the surface if you didn't give it a bit of a helping hand. Okay, got a bit of foil here. Now this is a returning item, the brushed metallic foil. I did see it in here earlier. Was it page? So here we go, the brushed metallic foils. They are a returning favourite from last Christmas, the last Christmas catalogue, and I've got the gold one here. They come in gold and copper and bronze. Now I'm going to go back to how big was that image. So the flower was 7.5 centimetres square. So I'm going to cut a square out of this. I think I'm going to make it 8.5 centimetres. Just thinking in terms of what will fit nicely on a card front. And I'm going to come back in with my outline image and some Stays-On, and I'm going to attempt, without the use of a harness, to stamp this Stays-On, this flower, onto this foil. I might bring in my sponge mat, though I've got my paper mat underneath, which does help a bit with some sponging. Let's just stamp that in the centre there. Fingers crossed. Not bad. Not too bad. Right. Now I could attempt to add some colour to this, but I do have to be careful because obviously the Stays-On will react with the pens. So I am sort of adding in a bit of colour, trying to avoid the lines where possible, so we're not getting a too much of a blurring, of almost dotting the colour on rather than rubbing it. You might find that some pens work better colouring on foil than others. We were discovering the other day that some sort of really discoloured, not necessarily our stamping blends, but other alcohol pens. So you do get definitely, if you hit the lines, a little bit of blurring of colour actually in this technique. As long as you don't smudge completely, I don't think it will create too much of a problem. Just be very gentle with it. The other thing you could have done, of course, although I don't know that it would work with this technique, if you wanted to colour on foil like this, you could heat emboss it. So we're coming round. Not worrying too much if we've got a bit of gold showing through the background of this colour. I'm just giving it a gilded sort of a look. Nearly back round. So this is the cherry cobbler that I'm using here. I have a bit of daffodil delight with me. We'll see. I might just not sure that that's going to add very much. I think I'm going to leave it with the sort of cherry cobbler and gold flakes peeking through. Right, I'm now going to come back with my stays on. And I need to be quite careful with this so that I'm not necessarily running over the sort of rubbing the colour. It's not to come this way as well, and I'm just wiping that down the sides. Give it quite a distressed look. I think we might come this way as well. So you do get some streaking, and that's okay. In actual fact, on this brushed, it's slightly brushed surface anyway. So there we are. So I haven't pressed on that. It just really is just sort of almost rubbing it across. You can see that that's rubbed across there. Give that just a minute, because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my Versamark and some clear embossing powder. So this is the black ice technique, if you've never come across it before. And I have to say that I think on all the black ice techniques I've done previously, I haven't necessarily coloured the image. So that's something a little bit new. Normally I've left the image just as a stamped image in the background, and so it almost looks etched when you've finished. And another of the Sale-a-Bration sets that I considered doing this with is this Feels Like Home. So this would be quite nice on a sort of foil background, but just leaving it as a black and white image without adding any colour to it would be quite fun, I think. But now I'm going to take my Versamark And I do want to be a bit more heavy-handed with my Versamark. I do want there to be a bit of a good covering of Versamark, but I'm not worried if it's not all covered. It can be a bit patchy, that's okay. So now I'm going to take that and put it in my clear embossing powder. Now obviously our embossing powders now come in packs of 3. I don't know whether you can see on some of that, you can see the foil shining through. I'm going to leave that bit on the edge actually. You can see the foil shining through, and in other parts it's not. Let's find, hopefully, somewhere. Here you go. Find the plug and then work my way back. And let's heat this up. Obviously, being on foil, it will turn a bit quicker than it would on normal cardstock. And you're going to get, I don't know how well the camera will pick up that sort of textured, grainy background on there. That's a lovely lovely effect. Let's get some cherry cobbler card. So we went 8.5 with our foil. Let's go 9 with a bit of cherry cobbler, and 10 with a bit of black. No, don't want to go 10, I want to go 9.5. Let's just trim that down a little bit. And cut a 10 by 14.4 piece of cherry cobbler there. I'm going to come in, I'm going to take the detailed little dahlia flower just here. With that, some cherry cobbler ink. So again, these are sort of quite muted colours in the background here. So you could again use this one for a sympathy card, but it certainly doesn't have to be. Now, decisions whether to go for a white card base or a black one. decision might be based on whether I can find a thick white cardstock. Where's it gone? I'll go completely different actually. I'll go very vanilla. So this is a piece of thick very vanilla to make this card base. Don't go down the vanilla route very often, but I think this may work quite well. Now there is in the catalogue, and I haven't got any yet, in amongst the ribbons, which would have been perfect for this. See, this is why you need it all. And you need it all straight away. There's a cherry cobbler and gold ribbon just there that I haven't yet got. Wouldn't that have been perfect for this project? But I have somewhere got some gold shimmer ribbon, so I think that will be quite nice as well to stick these together. So the gold foil onto the cherry cobbler mat, and then onto the black mat. Have this coming onto this background. I think we will raise it up. I don't seem to have any larger dimensions there. We're going to take some edge pieces. There's no rules that say you have to leave them till all the pieces in the middle have gone. There we go, perfect. They don't look pretty, but then they're not going to be seen. Didn't even cut them, I tore them. Let's have that slight angle just there. Bring in this gold shimmer ribbon. Let's stick that down there. I'll trim that bit of tape in a minute. It's coming in there. Just tie a knot with this. And cut that off at an angle. shall we have as our greeting for this one? Let's have the thank you kindly. Stick this card down so I don't lose it. Find a little piece of vanilla cardstock. There's that. Thank you kindly. Just looking round for my large scissors. Which I'm sure were here earlier and have now gone walkabout. Oh well. Not the end of the day. Let's just trim this with my mini trimmer. Moved at the last minute. Is that okay? Yes. I'm going to put that onto a little bit of cherry cool. And then we'll put it on a bit of black. So we're echoing the mats that are behind our flower. Oh, no, that wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. Let's trim a little bit more off of there. There we go. Thank you kindly. I think we'll have that on a bit of an angle, so I'm going to put a dimensional under that end. And a blue dot that end. And I think just a couple of little gold gems on there. So let's just throw some of these bits out of our way so we can see what we've been up to. So this is our black ice card. with that gold ribbon, and you've got that stamped detail in the background there, and cherry cobbler and gold. And then we've got our sympathy card that's watercoloured, and that's in Blackberry Bliss with some black mats and things behind it. And then these are the flowers that we just stamped with that detailed stamp as we began. So let's pop those in there as well. So there we go. That is the stunning Delicate Dahlias stamp set that I think you could probably overlook and think, why would I want that? But it's only when you start playing with it that you can see it's actually a really stunning stamp set, and there are lots of reasons why you might want it. So, as I say, if you're here in the UK, that you can have that as a free gift with a £90 order, and the equivalent wherever you are in the world. And if you go into the new mini catalogue, this catalogue that's running now up until the end of December, if you haven't yet got one of these and you'd like one, do get in touch and I'd be happy to send you one. But I think you'd find it very, very easy to find £90 worth of loveliness in there to spend to get this Dahlia as your free gift. So thank you for coming and joining me on this Friday morning, and for playing along and enjoying those watercolor techniques and black ice technique with the Delicate Dahlias, stamping up the card. It's been lovely to have you with me, and if you are joining on later and watching on catch up, do say hello, do leave comments. I do go back to them. It's nice to see that people are watching, they're watching later in the day, what they think, and have a lovely weekend, and we will be back with you on Monday morning for some more crafting from the lily pad here in the UK. So